everyone. Welcome to Arise with Grace, the podcast that celebrates and empowers the stories of strong, resilient women of faith who have moved from surviving to thriving and from pain to promise. I am your host, Phoenix Grace. I've been through both literal and figurative fires in my life. In the midst of my wilderness season, God told me, "You have walked through fire and survived. Now you will rise from the ashes and thrive." So I did. Now I have made it my mission to help empower women to be who they were created to be and live life in full bloom: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. Good morning. I am here with um Dr. Lana Wynn Scroggins. She's a writer and a speaker who is passionate about sharing Jesus with others. She's found personal healing and steadfast hope in the pages of God's Word. Lana's love for Jesus led her to create Giving Jesus, centered around a place to find inspiration, motivation, and encouragement to help support you in the good times and the times when you need encouragement the most. Oh, Lana, I am so blessed and grateful to have you here with me, us today.
Great.
So,
Thanks, Phoenix.
yeah. So, Lana, can I call you Lana or do you prefer
Yes.
Dr. Lana?
No, you can
Lana,
call me
okay.
Lana. I think
A little
Lana's just
formal.
fine. Yeah.
So, Lana, can you tell me a little bit? Like, every person has a story, and in the story, every person is a hero or heroine of their story. Every superhero, superheroine has a backstory, an origin story. So, can you tell me a little bit about your early life? First of all, what about your name, Lana?
Well,
Does it have a
actually,
meaning to you?
um,
Yeah.
I really have never looked up what my name Lana is.
Okay.
Um, but I will have to say that I was adopted when I was young.
Okay.
And when my mom and my dad, they waited a long time to get me. They were not able to have children, and they wanted
Okay.
children, and so back then it was a little difficult to get adopted children. You had to do a lot of things, and you had to provide a
Okay.
lot of stuff. And so they finally got me, and my name was Betty Marie. And because of
Okay.
the rules in adoption, they had to change it. And so
Mm.
my mom, back then, she didn't go to movies, so I don't know how she figured this out. But there was a famous movie star called Lana Turner, and so she wanted to call
Ah,
me. So she wanted to call me Lana. She didn't like Lana, so that really took me for years. Everybody would not know how to say Lana or Lana. Them, just kind of. And then years later, Lana changed hers to Lana Turner. So anyway, um, but then there was some place in Arkansas that was a street or something that said Wynn, Wynn. So
okay.
so then she wanted to put the Lana and the Wynn together. Well, I always put it that it's Lana Wynn, and I always use it for Win. And so that how in the Old Testament they would
Oh,
say that it was important to say people's names because
yeah.
it would mean something when you would say their name. And so I would always say I wanted people to say my name, Lana Wynn, because Lana's always going to win. And so anyway,
I like that.
this joke when we play cards on Friday night with my friends, and this one guy's name is Curtis. He goes, "Well, we got to say Lana win because Lana's going to win tonight." So I always kind of I know it was Lana Wynn, but I always wanted people to just say Lana Wynn because then that would, to me, always sound like I was going to win. So that's how I
I
kind
love that. I love that.
of,
Wow, so Lana Wynn. So do you think
yeah.
that name, um, did it give you a perspective of who you were at the time? Like, do you feel like that was a message that was given you? Win, that you were a winner? What about
Well,
in your family?
I don't know so much then as I did in later in life.
Okay.
I think when I was younger that I thought it was a cool, thing and I liked it but I don't know that when I was younger that I always thought I was always winning. So
Mhm. Mhm.
life was kind of, just different. And so um, I went through some different kind of times. I don't usually talk about this a lot, but I did go
Okay.
through a little bit of abuse when I was
Oh.
younger, and so it was a difficult time, and it was with a family member, and
Mhm.
I just didn't, uh, you know, um, it just weighted on me a lot, and
Yeah.
so I never told anyone, never told my parents about it. So it was like something that through all my growing up years, I always felt like, you know, um, I always felt like I was a bad person because of that
Mm.
tragedy that happened to me. But it wasn't. But I wasn't. But it just kind of attached itself to me in that form because I was just a kid, and
Yeah.
so yeah, it kind of it kind of framed a lot of my growing up years. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you say your growing up years, like what was your life like at that time? Like with your
Well,
parents, your
well, like
family?
like my dad was a deacon in the church,
Mhm.
and my mom was the Sunday school teacher of every class probably there ever was, in the summertime they'd have Bible school and and they did she was probably the president of the women's union or WMU or whatever they had back then.
Mhm. Mhm.
But I remember when I was a little kid and they had a tent and then they decided to build this church. So my dad's name is on the front of the church on a plaque as a
Oh,
founding
wow.
member. So my mom and dad were founding members they founded this church. So nevertheless, I had a lot of aunts and uncles and cousins and we had a big, big family. So everybody went to this church. So it was a big family church. I'm talking about like when we would get together on Sunday after church, there would be at least 15 or 16 cousins every Sunday
Oh,
playing,
wow.
because my mom had a lot of brothers and sisters, and one of her brothers had 5 kids, one of them had 6 kids, and we all got together for Sunday lunch after church on Sunday at my
Okay.
grandparents' house out in the woods. But anyway, because of this tragic happening to me when I was really young, I was
Mhm.
probably about 5 years old. I
Mm.
and then it kind of continued on too to some degree. But the thing about it is, it made me feel like I was a bad person. So, in going to church every Sunday and every Sunday night and every Wednesday night and every time the doors were open, because my parents
Right.
were in charge of the church basically,
Yeah.
I felt like I had to get saved every Sunday because I didn't understand. I mean, back then they preached, if you sin, you got to get saved. So I didn't get saved every Sunday, but
Oh,
you have that feeling of, just not knowing. You're a kid, you don't know.
yeah.
It wasn't until I went to college and I kind of had this nervous breakdown when I was in college because I was
Okay.
finally away from home. I was finally in a place where I could learn. I met these people in college that were more, it was a charismatic movement. It was around the Jesus freak time, everything. We had
Oh,
Jesus
okay, like Jesus Revolution, yeah.
we just had a lot. I remember I watched that movie recently because
Ah,
it
so did
really
I.
brought back a lot of stuff that was going on when I went to college. anyway, I got in with this
Wow.
group. They had they had a they had a really they taught me how to have a relationship with Jesus, and how it wasn't just going to church, walking down the church, and asking the preacher to become a Christian or whatever. It
Mm.
went beyond that. It went to becoming saved. Wasn't just shaking the preacher's hand, but it was giving my life to Jesus
Mm.
in a way that I created a relationship with him. So once I did that, then that started to help the healing process from all the tragedy that happened when I was a child. So I
Mhm.
started becoming with my relationship with God to the point where I trusted him more, and he started healing my heart, healing the
Aw.
wounds that were going on. And I met this lady that had this home for girls, and she took
Okay.
me in, and she helped me learn how that I didn't have to be as insecure as I was. We went
Mm.
to this church. She had a daughter, so I ended up living with her for many years. Her and her husband and her daughter and her mother actually came to live with us
Mm.
and to help her raise her daughters. That was kind of the beginning of my being a nanny for. I really wasn't a
Okay.
nanny, but I was kind of someone that helped her with raising her daughter. And
Mhm.
I did that for many years, but as doing that, she helped me become, you know, um, well, she just helped me become a real person, and not someone who was so depressed all the time and wanted to not live, or
Mm.
all these insecurities. She helped me and build she was a very godly woman. She uh, did Bible study. She knew how to help teach me how to become the godly woman that God wanted me to be. And so,
Would you say that she was like a spiritual mother to you?
well, I guess in some regards,
Yeah.
yes, I guess she probably was, because she really wasn't a mother or motherly type,
Right.
but she was the type of person that could help in the spirit, like you say, in the spiritual realm, of help teaching me
Mhm.
about how God is for me, he's not against me. He wants to have a relationship with you. And I would be
Mhm.
in her Bible studies, and I would learn so
Wow.
much from her teaching and her training and
To
everything.
show, like, the goodness of God, that side, the goodness of God, the good
Yeah,
Father, that it
yeah,
wasn't about what you're doing, right?
right,
Is that
right. And
more
it
like
was about
it
our
sounds
relation.
like you're
Yeah, and
yeah,
it's about my relationship with God, to grow it stronger, so that I put my faith in God, not in man, not in,
right.
the circumstances of life, because the circumstances of life are going to let you down. And
Mhm.
so you have to, um, build your faith and build your relationship with God to the point where you're relying on Him and not on, the tragedies of your life, or the successes of your life.
Right.
Those are just things that are circumstances of your life, but the main thing that is that your core values are that you're building your relationship with God.
Right. And you're not building it on that shifting sand. You're building it on that
Mhm.
strong foundation of being rooted and grounded in Christ, right?
Yes. Yes.
Wow. So I'm
Yes.
curious. I just thought of something. So when this lady, the spiritual mother, was teaching you, it was like the students at the college that you went to and this lady, it's like to me it's almost like they opened up this whole other view of what God was like. Is
Yes.
that? Yeah.
Yes,
And
basically.
did she ever talk about, in her Bible studies, like, that we're co-heirs with Christ and we're adopted? I'm just
Yeah.
wondering, you physically being adopted, did you connect with that, that we're all adopted into the kingdom? Did that
Yes,
ever
yes, I believe that there was a lot of times when she would, have different Bible studies that, she would talk about, how God, you know, is for us. He adopted us. We're he is our inheritance. I mean, we are children of God, and we are His children.
Mhm.
And so, it's not like it's just like a different type. And it was like, you know, well, she taught me how to basically, um, you know, um, get up and go to work, and
Mm,
how to have a job, and how to keep that job, and how to be a successful contributor to her family, to the life, to you know
okay.
to our our church world. I mean, how to actually live life, because at the point when I first met her,
Okay.
I was not wanting to live life. And so
Mm.
it took many years, but there were many years where, through just the process of living, I learned how to um, become who I am today, actually.
Oh, that's so
Sure.
beautiful. So I'm just trying to think. So you were raised in a church, like you said, you're a preacher's kid, your parents, you know, were founded the church and you were there like anytime the doors were open. But
Hmm.
what I heard you saying was it was more of an external? It sounds more like an external
Yeah,
thing
it
to
was more, yes, it was more of a, um, yeah, it wasn't an internal. It was more like I was brought up in this environment,
yeah.
but it wasn't until later on that I could internalize the good,
Okay.
until when I became and got around people that would show me, the goodness of God, even in the midst
Mm,
of my failures, even in the midst of um, my not doing the right thing, even in the midst of um, all the things that happen to you in life, and
yeah.
then still come out on the end of where the goodness of God, it's the goodness of God that brings
Mm,
all men to repentance. And
amen.
it's not beating them down and trying to get them to be a good person. I mean,
Right.
you have to
Not our
realize,
performance.
yeah, you have to realize that a lot of people that are in situations and stuff, and addictions, and they have hard times, and they can't, and it doesn't even necessarily mean it could be a gambling, it could be alcohol, it could be
Mhm.
finances, it could be buying too many shoes. I don't know,
Yeah.
it could be whatever causes you to you know need God more than whatever it is that you're doing. Well,
Mm,
and so it's like, but it's the goodness of God. You can't just go beat them over the head and say, you got to change, you got to change, you got to
right.
change. No, the goodness of God allows them to change through their circumstances
Yeah.
as you show them the goodness of God.
And that relationship with the indwelling Holy Spirit, right?
Yes,
So
because then they'll
so
want to change themselves.
so did you have okay, so did you have like a mountaintop come to Jesus rapid, I believe, I accept, like did you have that moment of where you publicly said that I'm giving my life to you? Like, you grew up in the church.
Well,
But
yeah, I think at one point when I was in college, I remember that I was over at this pastor's house, and we'd all been talking, and I just said, "Okay, I I am going to once and for all, finally and forever, not, this is it." And so I knelt down on their ottoman. I remember this clearly.
mhm,
Knelt down on their ottoman and I gave my life to Christ. And I believe at that moment I started my relationship. Now, you know, um, yeah, sure. There were probably some times, and there are not too many, but a couple probably there where I doubted or something. But it wasn't before where I felt like I had to walk down the aisle every Sunday and get saved. I felt
mhm,
like that on that ottoman, I made the decision that I was going to walk with Jesus the rest of my life.
mhm.
And so at that point, I did. And then when I met this lady, to help me go to the next. It was like God. It was like when I was in college, I met these students. They helped me with this pastor. They helped me with this Bible study group. This Bible study group leader helped lead me to this lady.
Mhm.
And so by the time I got to this lady, then I was already at a foundational point where she could take me to the next level.
Yeah.
Then uh, when it became time many years later to leave her life and move
Mhm,
on to my next level with
mhm,
another family where I was
mhm.
going to take care of their son for
Okay.
4 years, then I was at another point in life where I was going to my next growing phase and next level of um, basically, I took care of their child 24/7 most of the time they worked. It got to a point where at the after about 4 years, they were ready to move on to another city.
Mhm,
And I had decided that I was about 50, 51 around in there. And I was deciding that, for the first time in my life, it's time for me to be on my own. It's time for me to stand up, be my own person. It's time for me to grow up. Now, I know that's
mhm,
kind of difficult to have come to that decision at about 50 years old, and those people were moving to another city and they needed to move on with their child. And
yeah.
they didn't really kind of want to do that break. They didn't want me to not
Mm,
leave them. They didn't want me to.
mhm,
And that was not a real pretty picture at the moment because they didn't want me to leave and I
mhm.
wanted to leave. So one night I left their house with less than $100 in my pocket
Oh,
and
wow.
a few things in a box, and went to my friend's house and said, "Okay, I'm leaving them because it's time for me to go on and be my person." And um, and later on, we were able to go back and get my things that were at
Mhm,
the
mhm,
house. But at that point, I had to make a decision to move forward in my life.
mhm.
And it was difficult. And I went to the church the next day. I talked to our pastor. He gave me $400
Oh,
and said,
wow.
"Can this get you?" Because I told him that if I could have money to get to my mother's house in Arkansas, she had a camper. I could
Mhm.
get that camper. I could bring that camper back. I don't even know how I came up with this whole idea. I could get that camper. I could bring it back down to where we live. I could find there were lots around here at that time, so I could find a place to put my camper at one of the camper places.
Yeah, yeah.
And I didn't have a job or nothing. I don't know how I was cooking this all up, but he goes, "Okay, I'm going to give you $400 and see if that can get you to where you need to go," because I didn't have anything. So I had a truck
Mm.
and I drove to my mother's house in Arkansas, which was about 13 hours away. I came in
Wow.
and my mother had this camper in the back of the yard. And to make a long story short, she said I could have it.
Mhm.
So then we pulled it out to the field. I lived on a farm. So we pulled it out to the field and we hooked it up to my truck. It the lights would not work on the camper to the truck. So it's like
Oh,
you have to have lights and you have to have brakes because I lived in the mountains. And so I had to drive that camper down the mountains. And
very
so
important, yeah.
there's no guardrails or anything. I mean, it's like you go off, you're going off into a big deal. It's not like a ditch or a gully. It's like you're going off
Mhm.
a canyon or something, So it was big. So it was a big important thing that I be able to do this. And so my brother came over, him and his buddy Wally came over, and we're gonna try to hook the lights up on the truck. And him and Wally just threw up their hands and said, "We can't get it to work. It's not going to work. The mice have eaten the lines in the trailer. The lights are not going to work.
Oh,
We're done. We're going home." So my mom went somewhere. My brother went home with his friend. I was out there in this big field. Now think about this big field of
yeah. Big
in
open
this
space,
farm,
yeah.
this big field in this farm on the hill, and I was just screaming. I was yelling. I was screaming to God, and I was in my hands in the air, and I said, "God, this has got to work. This has got
Mhm.
to work." And it just I kind of like had a 2-year-old fit to God, And I was screaming, I was yelling,
Like in the Psalms, right? When they speak out in Psalms and they're
right, and it was like
crying.
And it was like, yeah, and it was like, why did I think that he needed me to yell? He could, is that going to make him hear me that much more if I yelled? I
Right?
mean,
So you had that
I didn't know,
emotion that
I didn't know. But anyway,
you
I
did it
pitched,
in
I
perfect
pitched,
action, right?
yeah, I pitched a fit, and I was done. I walked in the house. I'd been in the house for about maybe 10 minutes or something, and the phone rang, and it was my brother, and he said, "Oh, Wally and I think we figured it out. We're gonna be back over," and because they had already told me it would not work. Well, they came back
Right.
over. They did some more things, and they figured it out, and it worked.
Oh
Then my
goodness.
brother, then my brother said, "Well, do you know how to drive a camper?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. I haven't." So he took me over to his house, and he had a trailer hooked up to his truck. And he says, "Well, you're going to get trailer, um, instructions." And so he gave me trailer lessons on how to drive with something behind my truck. Anyway, make a long story short, um, I I pulled the trailer down the mountains. I got to Birmingham. It was pouring down rain, but I said you can park in Walmart. So I pulled into Walmart. I spent the night in my own home for my first time in my whole life, my own place in a Walmart, and went into Walmart and got me a flashlight because I didn't have any lights, and had my own personal home for the first time in my first life. Anyway, then I drove it the next day into town. A friend of mine told me I could park it at his shop until I could figure out where I was going to put it.
Mhm.
Till I
Mhm.
had a lot to put it on. So anyway, so I pulled in. Some friends of mine, I called them. They said they were at the soccer field. Come down there. So I went down to the soccer field. I came up to the soccer field after I unhooked my trailer back at his shop. And a friend of mine came over and she said, we're letting our PE teacher at the Faith Christian School go. Would you like to be our PE teacher? I said,
Wow, so you had a
sure.
degree. You had gotten a degree
Yeah, so
in your throughout
I
this,
said,
yeah?
"Well," I said, "Sure." I said, "Well, tell my friend." I said, "You didn't know, but I have a degree in physical education." She goes, "Oh, that's even better." So, but it's a private
Oh,
school. It's a private
so
school,
they
so I didn't
yeah.
really necessarily have to have a degree to be their PE teacher. But anyway, it helped. And so anyway, so I drove into town. I go to the soccer field. I get a job. I go to the job. She goes, "Can you start tomorrow?" And I said, "Sure." So I started the next day. I spent the night with some friends. I started the next day. When I walked into the school, the pastor of the school came up to me and said, "Okay, yesterday at church, um, are some people that go to their church said they have a lot over here in Oak Grove, and that you could put your camper over there, and it could be so much per month, and it was a very reasonable price.
Wow.
So,
And you
so,
had a job now, so you could
so
afford
I
it.
drove in. So I drove back into town. I got a job. I got a place to park my camper, and I had a home. All in a matter
Wow.
of all in the matter of walking out of their house with left less than $100, not knowing what I was going to do, cooking up this idea, which I'm sure God had,
It was a
and
God idea for
and
sure.
and
Mhm.
coming in, getting a job, having a place to live. So I spent 3 years on that lot there. It was
Wow.
really cool, but the only thing about it was it's everything kind of started to tear down, and so the people I was working for, they said, "Well, we have a trailer over in um, Highland View where we, we're close to where our job, where I got another job
Yeah.
actually in the afternoons working at the fish house. So I worked at the school, worked at the fish house. Then the fish house people hired me on full time, and then they provided me with a trailer to live because my camper was falling apart. It
Falling
was a
apart.
lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Wow.
anyway, so I went and lived in that trailer, and then um, a few years after that, about 6 years, I guess, after that,
Okay.
we had a Category 5 hurricane come to our area,
Oh my.
which tore up that
The
so
trailer.
tore up that trailer.
Wow.
So here I was, homeless again. And so um from my first experience, I was like, okay, well, God, you helped me before,
You
so
provided.
we're a provider. We're going to figure this out. So I did have a job at that time.
Okay.
So that was, and I had lots of friends that I could stay with. So I went and I moved in with some friends
Yeah.
and told them it would be a short period of time. I'd figure out something. Well, thank God I called my mother up again, and um, she said she would give me some money to buy a camper. So I
Wow.
bought another camper, and uh, and put it on another lot, and God provided that lot, good price, everything. He was just provided everything, and so it was like every situation along the way, God provided, what I
Mhm.
needed at the time, and
So
so
it sounds like you stepped out for it. Okay. Sorry. I'm just gonna
sorry.
back up a little bit. So what I hear, so you made the decision to accept Christ, to live your life for Christ, to make him your Lord. You It sounds like he talked to you, right?
Right,
You stepped out, you heard his call, he said, "Okay, it's time for you to move on. You've been rooted and grounded in the faith. Now you need to grow up and out and be all he created you to be. Go on to the next step." You
right,
heeded that call. You stepped out. As you stepped out, he provided through people, through, you know, like, yeah, and you did it. You went through it, and it sounds like you how is it? My pastor used to say, exercise your trust muscle, exercise your faith muscle. So you
yeah,
did that. You exercised it. You stepped out, right?
yes, yes,
And these things were
exactly.
provided.
Right,
Wow.
I did. And then, you know, um, it's like, um, well, you just have to, um, I don't know. It's sometimes it's kind of, I don't know. It's like God giving you opportunity. He's given me some more opportunities here lately
Mhm.
to exercise that same faith, and so, um, working the last few years. I became an author and started writing some books and everything. And then I
Mhm.
was with this program, this subscription box, and they decided to close. And so when they closed, a good portion of my income actually ended. And then I was
Mm.
working with another person, and she decided to sell her business. So I that job kind of ended. And then I had a couple of other little side jobs that kind of ended. So last year I really kind of lost four streams of income. I had
Mm.
some other streams, but four of my major streams of income I
Mhm.
lost. So as last year kind of went on, each time I would lose a stream of income, I would just keep working and keep praying and keep believing God that
Mm.
He is going to provide somewhere
Yeah.
else along the way. I just had to go, God, I know you provided and I
Yeah.
know you will provide. And I still have some. I mean, I wasn't destitute or anything, but, I didn't, that loss was still a loss. And
Yeah.
so anyway, so now, um, you know, I worked on my business last year. I worked on my books. I kept doing what God had, was directing me to do. And now, starting, the first of this year, I started gaining some new confidence and new contracts. And so I've just
Wow.
got a
So
couple.
God is providing.
Yeah, so I
You're
just
not
got to
putting
meet
your
a couple of
trust
people.
in
Yeah,
the circumstances or in like yes, trust like people work together in community and connection. God is a God of relationship and he sends people into your life. But it sounds like they're not your source,
no,
right?
God is my
You have
source, and now He's opening up some new opportunities for me that I didn't
yeah.
even know a year ago would exist, but now all of a sudden I got some new opportunities that are opening up. And,
Wow.
it's like when you need God to open up an opportunity for you,
Mhm.
He might not do it tomorrow, but He might do it next month. Or it
Mhm.
might just be He's grooming you for the way for when He does open it up, you're ready for
Right.
that. Because sometimes you might need some training. And so when He opens it up, you've already got the training that you needed in order to be able to do what
Yeah.
He's given you to do.
Well, he equips us, right? When he calls us, he equips us. And I
Exactly.
can see that so beautifully for your life. The
Yeah.
different stages, the different like wow, that's so
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
And
It's like,
so what I
yeah.
hear is so you had I guess you had that moment like you said where you gave your life to Christ and but your circumstances didn't all get perfectly magically perfect and better. Like you went through a few things in
Right.
your life,
Right.
but it sounds like what changed within you from before to now you can like handle these situations with so much trust in God. Like how what does that internal shift feel like for you?
Well, I think the internal shift feels like that God building on the confidence that we have in Him each
Yeah.
time we need Him, there is another confidence that is built. I mean, you have to take, for instance, okay, here I was, a little child in a foster care system. I, I
Mhm.
didn't have a home. I don't even know what happened to the parents or my other siblings or anything about that situation. But God
Right.
provided me a good family from my mom and dad. They were good Christian people.
Mm.
They were honest, they were hardworking, they wanted to teach me all the things they could teach me. I had really good parents. God provided me with very good parents. And my
Mhm.
parents taught us how to live, and they gave us a good stable foundation. So the confidence that God gave me when He put me in that situation was providing for
Mhm.
me. security. And even though there's some tragic things that happen that caused me to get, a little emotionally off kilter later on in life,
Mhm.
that I still built on the fact that he put me in a stable foundation for my parents. And then I went to college, and then I met my, what we want to call spiritual mother, maybe. I met
Mhm.
this lady,
Mhm.
and she helped me through the next 20 something years, you know, build on the confidence that God, builds on in teaching and training, in Bible study, and in church, and in, just learning how to live, and my relationship with God got strengthened and got strengthened. And then I moved with this other family. It was time for me to become on my own. Then God gave me the confidence. He built on that confidence. I left that situation homeless without nothing, no job, less than
Mhm.
$100. I didn't know what I was going to do the next day, but he built on that confidence to where he came and he gave me a place to live, gave me a job. And
Mm.
then when I had another situation come up to where I lost my home again, I built on that confidence that, okay, he took care of me then. And through all this in 2000, well, in 1999 slash 2000, I started the battle with cancer. And so through all these years,
Mhm.
at certain points in life, I've had to deal with different uh, times when the cancer would come back. And so, I built on the confidence that God had each time along the way. So I believe the inner confidence that God uh, built on each time when He rescued me to each point in time
Mhm.
builds on a confidence where I know tomorrow, if something were to fall apart tomorrow, I can
Mhm.
look back on all the confidences that God has built me up to this point, and I know and I have a sure relationship with God and the confidence that it doesn't matter if it all falls apart tomorrow. He is still going to build it up, and it's going to come back again, and it's going to come back even greater and even better because I have a firm foundation to be able to stand on. Each
Mhm.
confidence He's built in my life along the way.
So good. So good. So it's not I keep going back to, you have salvation, then, but as you walk it out, it's what they call sanctification, becoming more Christ-like, walking out your faith in fear and trembling. So it's not just like I said, you don't just magically get better, your circumstances. It's like walking through the circumstances with God, trusting in Him, and He grows you and develops you, and you can handle more, right?
Yes,
That's so
yes.
beautiful, so
Yes,
beautiful.
and that could actually kind of go into one of the books that I have written, and one of my devotionals that I've written is is on focus on gratitude. The
Okay.
circumstances in our life can be difficult or easy, but God's will is that we give thanks in all situations, even when we don't feel like giving thanks. The essential part of that verse is that we give. Give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus, which is First Thessalonians 5:18. Sometimes the circumstances of life can seem to be negative and happen at the most inconvenient time. When circumstances of life happen to us, they seem to be negative. But the truth is, they are just inconveniences of life. And we can have a negative or a positive reaction to those circumstances. This is when we need to like a little shift in our focus in gratitude from the
Amen.
negative to the positive.
Amen.
For example, let's say we have a flat tire. A flat tire can be an inconvenience.
Mhm.
It's going to get fixed. It's just a flat tire, but you can look at that as that flat tire just blew your whole day to smithereens, and you can take that as a negative and take
Mhm.
out that flat tire being broke all day on everyone you come across that day. But if you look at it and you shift your gratitude and you say, "Thank you, Jesus, I have a car and I can get someone to help me change my flat tire," then you
Mhm.
can have a change and shift in your positive and in your attitude. Most circumstances that are inconvenience can be fixed over time. And that's true. Any situation, any circumstance that we come upon, it's just a circumstance. It's
Mhm.
just a circumstance. And most of the time, it's just an inconvenience. Like, for
Yeah.
instance, I mentioned that I had cancer. Well, having cancer is not really the most inconvenient part. The most inconvenient part is having to go get the scan, get the doctor's appointment,
Mhm.
make this appointment, do that. It's the inconveniences of the what comes out from having the situation or the circumstance. And
Yeah.
so we just have to shift our focus in gratitude in saying,
Mhm.
God, today is the day that you have made, and we're going to rejoice and be glad
So
in it.
good.
We know,
Yeah.
we know that today you have made. And so we're going to rejoice and be glad in it. We don't know what's tomorrow. We know that we're overcoming, our insecurities from the past. But as you
Mhm.
help us grow and as you help us, see the circumstances of today are just little minor inconveniences that will be fixed over time, then all
Yeah.
we got to do is put our trust and our confidence. It goes all the way back to the confidence that God has built in our lives over time that we can stand on. I have confidence, have every confidence in the world that I can stand on today, tomorrow, and the next day that God is going to make a way.
On the promise, stand on the promises of God and on the word and the
Amen.
confidence that you have in him. Oh, that's so beautiful. So,
Yes.
Lana, I have so much enjoyed this time hearing your story, and I know people will want to know more about you. So, how can people um, find out what you're up to, get access to your books, connect with
Well,
you?
I have a website called www.givingjesus.com.
Okay.
So you can go to that, or you can find me on email at
Okay.
Lana Wynn Scroggins at gmail.com. That's Lana, Lana
Okay.
Wynn Scroggins, Scroggins
Hmm.
at gmail.com.
Okay. And what kind of things like um if they wanted to email you, what would you be open for like for them to email you about?
Um, I'd be open to, I have a Zoom room, and if you need a friend to talk and you have something that you want to learn how to have confidence in, I will
Hmm.
send you a link to my Zoom room and I'll pray for you, and we can meet Jesus right there, and
So good. So
I
good.
can help show you how you can have confidence in him, that he can,
Hmm.
help you along the way.
Hmm.
You know, I sorry, I'm having a little hard. I've talked a lot,
No
and
worries.
I have a little hard time talking, but sorry, but I can share anything with you. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Hmm.
Better get a drink right quick.
Yeah, I was gonna say take feel free to take a drink. I'm actually gonna take a drink too. So okay,
Oh,
every audience, take a refreshment break.
yes, yes. And so,
Mm.
but anyway, but no, seriously, I'd be glad to help you with. I have a doctorate in IT. I can help you with tech work. I can help you with Christian work. I can
I
help
might
you.
call you on that one.
Well, I'd be glad to help you. My specialty here lately has been helping people set up their emails and create books for their lead magnets, and
Oh, okay. Good for
their
you.
and helping kids co-author books, I've been
Yeah.
doing all kinds of different things, but if you went to my website, you'll be able to get an activity book or a devotional or
Oh,
anything that you would like to, reach out. I'd be glad to help you in any way. I also have a podcast myself, but it's just
okay.
yeah, it's just a devotional podcast where you can go and listen to short little devotions that are encouraging and uplifting.
Yeah. I
It's
actually listened to a couple of them. I can't tell you which ones I read because you had
yeah,
really nice notes that just had it all. And I even though I do a video podcast, I tend to read more
yeah,
because it's quicker, right? But
right.
oh, well, thank you so much for being on the show, and
Well, thank you,
you've
Phoenix. I
inspired
want to.
me to
Oh,
put
thank
even more
you.
trust
Thank you.
in
I
God.
really appreciate you having me on your show, Phoenix. I really feel like this has been a great opportunity to share with you, share with others, and I hope that
Mhm.
someone today has found that God, putting their confidence, faith, and trust in Him, can bring them encouragement, inspiration, and help them make it through today.
Amen. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to stop there and meet you in the broadcast room, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Appreciate it. Bye bye.
Thank you for watching Rise with Grace Stories of Women Moving from Pain to Promise. You too can move from the pain in your life to the promise of a new life. Go to www.lifeandbloomforyou.com. Sign up for the mailing list to find out when new episodes are coming out and to receive your free Love Like Jesus bundle just for signing up. Keep blooming in Him. Bye for now.